Peace and blessings, community. We are super excited to have you partnering with us today as we are honing in on our Crown Act Town Hall here in North Carolina. We're so happy to have with us today a very full panel with excited leaders that are leading for equity in so many different aspects here around the country, and more specifically in North Carolina. We want to kick it off by kind of giving a quick overview of what we are actually doing with a song that one our co-founder, Dr. Bernice Ramala, had shared with us. And we're going to go into that while we prepare for our town hall. All right, can you all hear me clearly? Okay, incredible. I'm seeing a note that we are not live on Facebook, so let's go and make sure that we're good on that. So while we are prepping for this, I'd love to take this opportunity to really amplify how much it means for us to have you all present with us as we are around here making history in the capacities that we are. And here we are. All right. Looks like we should be going live on Facebook now. Thank you all so much for working with us as we figure out what goes on in the background. So to give you a little bit of understanding of why we're here today, we really wanted to take this chance to really amplify what we're doing here with Crown Campaign and our support for pushing for advocacy. And with the Crown Act. The Crown Campaign began February of last year, and we really wanted to amplify how we could come together collectively across the country to really focus on ending discrimination and injustice for many people that are facing hair discrimination. The Crown Act was a great opportunity for us to amplify this protection and security for us as it was becoming law in the same time, gaining momentum in states. And what we were finding with the Crown Campaign is that people were reaching out to us wanting to know how to get involved, how to bring the Crown Act to their community. And we were so happy and honored to be able to share space and work with and supporting those leaders that were amplifying their interest in joining the Crown. Now, with that came a lot of hard work and us building up what a village would look like. And so in the process of that, we met some incredible and great people. We're so happy that from the beginning we've had the support and partnership and participation with Crystal Richardson, who's part of our lead team, has been leading policy. She's our legal expert, and she is going to be sharing a little bit in a moment about what is going on across the nation and cool updates so that we can check in locally what's going on as well. And then we also will be hearing from Carla Arroyo, who is our Crown Campaign Fellow that we're so happy to have with us from our lead team today. Also members of our lead team is Dr. Bernice B. Rumala, who's unable to be with us today, but of course you just heard her song that she created and produced herself to really express her own lived experience and hair story journey. We also have JB out of California, who's another legal expert on our team, and Dr. Manka Nakimbe, who has been focusing on collaborating research around connecting hair discrimination with health inequity and health disparities across the country in presenting and preparing reports on behalf of the Crown Campaign. We're so happy to have with us. We'll check in right now and turn it over to Crystal, who will introduce herself and kind of share with us an update on what's going on in her community representing us.
Hi, everybody. Crystal Monique Richardson here. I'm in North Carolina. I'm excited to be here at a place where we can be celebrated for our hair, our crowns, our natural hair, and not just tolerated. I think we should be celebrating all day, every day, but it's so good to be in a space with other like-minded people and share our passion about why legislation like the Crown Act is so important, especially in a state like North Carolina. As you know, or as some of you may know, the Crown Act is an act that prevents against hair discrimination, but truly gets to the racial identity and the connection between hairstyles such as cornrows, just your natural hair, such as Carla on the panel, and Shemeka here, and many of us, other natural styles that you want to wear, but have previously been almost banned by the law from being able to do anything about should your employer tell you that your hair is unkempt or it doesn't comply with their Eurocentric employment policy. So I'm excited to see so many states such as California, Maryland, Kentucky, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Oregon, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Nebraska, Michigan, Missouri, Minnesota, Washington, Virginia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, all of these places, and North Carolina should certainly be added to that list of states and other municipalities who have decided that it's time to do something that changes our perceived perception of what it means to be professional. We all were heartbroken, I'm sure, when we saw incidents like that 16-year-old boy in New Jersey cutting his hair publicly just to win a wrestling match. I know that video went viral, and I certainly thought about times where I've been tapped on the shoulder by my employer to unbraid my hair when I have locks that naturally grow, and essentially the only way to get rid of this is to cut my hair. And I just, of course, no one should be forced with that type of decision. And then seeing in Florida that father fighting for his 6-year-old son just getting first grade and get a voucher to get his son into a private institution, and being refused simply because his son had dreadlocks, and a high schooler suspended in Texas for refusing to cut his locks. And so I absolutely get excited when I see more and more states passing legislation, particularly that includes legislative intent that talks about the importance of connecting Blackness and ethnicity to these types of cases. Historically, we've seen on a federal level Title IV, the 1964 Act, that simply, again, has prevented us, especially in the workplace, that essentially it prohibits discrimination associated with race, color, religion, and sex, national origin. But of course, the law has crafted out this exception that hair can be changed. It's immutable, something that is in your control, something that is a decision. And what you see with acts such as the Crown Act and all of the states that I just mentioned is a shift to a more, in my opinion, a more logical and a more reasonable connection that these laws get, again, to the Blackness, to the roots, to the core of what it means to be Black and of existence, and just to be able to be yourself, have that mental peace, and have laws that don't disparately impact and negatively impact our community. So I'm excited to see the beauty of Blackness and natural hair being protected, being celebrated, and I'm hopeful that many of us are just as excited as I am, and you will write to your legislators, you will talk to your employers about the policies that they have in place, and just continue to talk to people about the act, the Crown Act, and why it's important to you, and celebrate your hair. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing that insight and powerful reflection on where we are nationwide. I think it's important to understand that in addition to us being able to pass these protections at the law, at the legal level, within our states as national, are so important for us to be able to track, because we are able to find the states that most resonate and identify with where we are on our journey, you know. So we're so happy to have you, Crystal, to really amplify what's going on and what's next. And one other aspect on the journey that was really amazing is to be able to, in the village, amplify whatever you're really passionate about and really good about. And we were so happy to have Carla join our team and really show passion. When we did the Crown conference back in January, we were able to meet her, and I want her to take a moment and grace us with her presence, kind of check in and share about her experience, as well as the article that she was able to amplify with the lived experience of Miss Randy Woodley, that was in part of the initial advocacy stories that we had beginning last August. I'll turn it over to Carla now.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing great today on this awesome Friday. I am so grateful to be here with you ladies. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So a little about me, I'm a graduate student at the CUNY, what we call it the Newmark J School at CUNY, and I'm currently focusing on Black and Brown women in workplaces and in schools and in society, and how they are impacted by hair discrimination. This community, which I am a part of, is something I'm very passionate about, because I myself have lived experiences of hair discrimination in the workplace, and I've always felt like I've had to straighten my hair for interviews or straighten my hair to even coexist in the workplace. And once I became appreciating and embracing my natural hair, which was my junior year of college at SUNY Old Westbury, I told myself, why am I always trying to assimilate to Eurocentric standards when I'm already myself at the root? No pun intended. And that was when I decided, telling my mom, can you cut my hair? I'm ready to go natural. I'm ready to return to natural, because I've always been natural, actually. So I asked her to give me the big chop. And ever since, that was in August 2016, I've been natural, and I am never looking back, because this is not just an aesthetic. This is just deep. This is deeper than hair. This is my identity. When I walk in the room with my fro, you know who's here. So with that being said, the work that I have done in my community. So I am a journalist. I reported on Randy Hogan Woodley's situation with her 5-year-old grandson, who is known as Tink, who she often sent to school with braided hair. And he was discriminated against and isolated from the other students in the school. And the school's district presented her with a very unconsiderable offer, which was either to cut his hair or to have him wear a dress and identify as transgender. Think about it. This is a 5-year-old you're asking to identify as transgender, with something that a 5-year-old probably doesn't understand. So I was able to write that story, and I feel like it had an impact in the sense that people think hair is just something that, like I mentioned earlier, that is based on your appearance. This is something that is based on race. So when Governor Pete Ricketts of Nebraska vetoed the Crown Act in Nebraska, it was just like, okay, his argument was that the definition of race, the definition of discrimination could affect different groups, but it isn't white people that are being affected by this. It's clearly Black and brown people. So we'll start there. So with that being said, moving forward, the work that I want to continue doing with the Crown campaign is spreading the message about normalizing Black hair in all environments. My hair should not determine my performance at work. And two, if there aren't people that look like us, in legislature, how do we expect to be protected? So that work comes from us, the women who have the lived experiences of fair discrimination, to be able to combat that and educate others and let them know that we're here to stay. We're not changing our hair because we are who we are and we love it. Thank you.
Yes, you better say that. We are here to stay. Absolutely. We have been so blessed to have you as a fellow and being able to really amplify the voices of those that are experiencing inequities that may not have the center stage or may not have the national spotlight, but is experiencing serious oppression. So definitely thank you for connecting with Miss Randy, and thank you for representing Tink and her story in a positive light, because it's very powerful and moving for us to mobilize in that capacity. Definitely look up the article. We'll share the link in chat so that you can check it out. But incredible work from Carla, and we're so happy to have her. So now the other most amazing part of being on this journey with Crown Campaign for from the beginning was really meeting incredible people like the two individuals that are leading organizing work across their state right now. We will be bringing to our virtual stage to share her journey in Colorado. If you ever want to hear a story of about what it looks like as an individual to just decide to create and be a part of a change, then Annalise Harris is certainly that individual. And not only is she a powerful, bold advocate in community, but she's also the founder that is bringing powerful content through the Curls on the Block platform. And we're so happy to have her joining us. And so now, without further ado, we will have the awesome and amazing, if she's available and ready to jump right in, is Annalise Harris with Curls on the Block and the Miss Curly Pageant.
I think she may have had a
Oh,
network issue. I'm
oh,
sure she'll return.
yep, looks like that. So what we will do, that is just fine. We are so happy then to go on to our next partners now. Our next partners that we're amplifying is interracial activists, which I have to first say is so powerful and amazing to have met these young people when they begin their journey several years ago, amplifying what hair discrimination in the form of denying the right to wear head wraps was their beginning journey out of Oklahoma. And I want to introduce to you all Delaney and Izzy to share their story and their journey and their call to action and what they're doing right now. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Delaney and Izzy. Are you available?
Hey everyone, I'm Delaney. I'm 18 and I go to East Central University, and I'm from Oklahoma.
Hello, my name is Izzy Miller. I'm 18 as well, and I'm from Ada, Oklahoma.
Do you want to go to?
So we first started our page called Interracial Activists during our sophomore year in high school. At first, it was just a page for us to express our political views and our opinions about controversial things. But during our sophomore year of high school, we decided to wear head wraps, and we eventually got in trouble for it. Delaney was asked, like, what is that thing on your head? You know, and just kind of being policed for something that's normal to us and something that's a part of our culture and our heritage.
Part of our identity, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so then during sophomore year, you know, we just started wearing them again, and we didn't get in trouble. But during our junior year, we started getting in more trouble for it, and we were eventually, you know, almost in ISD because we decided to, you know, continue to wear them and refuse to take them off. But during our senior year, we were actually placed in ISD because we refused to remove them. And to us, it was just something that was wrong. And
we had to even sit in a cubicle for 8 hours, you know, staring at a wall, and you know, one computer for multiple students because we wore head wrap. We you know, we felt like we were being labeled as disruptive or, you know, bad kids just because we wanted to express ourselves culturally with our head wraps. We didn't feel like it was right. So that's when we continued our journey. And then you can explain more of that.
So we continued our journey with that by sending, like news stations what's happening to us and getting in contact with people who have been through similar situations. And eventually we end up doing a news interview, and it kind of spread like national headlines, like what we were going through. And eventually we started using our page, Interracial Activists, as a platform to get in touch with other individuals who are going through the same thing by being discriminated against just for wearing, their afro or cornrows, or just wearing head wraps, something that's, normal to us, but, people don't understand that this has to do with our ethnicity, our race, our culture. So we eventually got in contact with, people who are, were doing the same thing as we were. And then December of last year, we ended up changing our school's headwear policy to include cultural headwear. So now it's not an issue anymore there.
Yeah, and a policy that was there for a very long time. And a lot of, students struggled with that, not being able to come to school and express who they are. To other people it might seem like such a small issue, a head wrap or not being able to wear braids, but for us, it is a big issue. It's just a small form of oppression and microaggressions against our people. And we really wanted to touch on that and, show our superintendents, our principal, the Board of Education, that this is a big issue and that, this is a small form of oppression, and we want to be able to, express ourselves culturally, express our identity. We use head wraps, historically, if you look at the history of America, head wraps were looked at as a thing that was negative. Black women had to put it on, and that, we had to cover our hair. And then, later on, head wraps became a thing that was empowering, and that's what it became to us as we researched our culture, our identity, our hair, and what it really means and why we should be proud of it. We started to realize that this is a bigger issue than people are making it out to be. So this, started our journey to researching, and this is when we came across the Crown Act, which, we were actually in the process of trying to propose or write up legislation so we could propose something like that. And once we saw the Crown Act, we were so thrilled. We were so excited, knowing that there were people already fighting for us before we even thought about it. And as soon as we saw that, we reached out and got in contact with them, and that's when our journey began, to not only just to change a school dress code, but to change our state's laws about hair and about headwear in public schools. Luckily, Representative A.J. Pittman has already proposed a bill for workplaces, but we felt like it was our calling to do the same for public schools, because people have reached out to us saying that this is happening at our school, this is happening at our school. In relation to Oklahoma being a more conservative state, this is obvious and a problem that's going to happen. So we felt like it was our duty to work on legislation, and that's what we are currently working on, as well as our Instagram page, reaching out to different people who are going through the same thing as us. We created posts called School Discrimination Saturday and For the Culture Friday, where we post about people who have experiences of headwear or hair discrimination in their schools, workplaces, anywhere.
And not just in Oklahoma, but just across
everywhere.
The nation.
Yeah.
Because it's just not an Oklahoma thing. It's, like, for example, the boy in Texas who was forced to cut his hair. So it's just not an Oklahoma thing. We really wanted to spread awareness that we're not the only ones who are going through this.
Yeah. And, again, currently we're working on legislation that is similar to New Jersey's, but again, ours is more for public schools, and
it includes cultural headwear,
obviously natural hair, and we want to recognize that this is an issue for Black and brown people in Oklahoma. Our Native brothers and sisters are going through the same thing, having to cut their hair, and considering the Native community, that this is such a symbolic, hair is such a symbolic thing. It's a very tied to who they are and their identity. Same with Black people. So this is a thing that we really want to press on in this legislation, and hopefully come up with more events like panels where we can speak to our representatives and speak to people in Oklahoma who are going through the same thing, and if they're not, to educate them about things that are happening in our community. And but again, the legislation is targeting a dress code that was already put in place, so allows public schools to create dress codes. And we really want to add in a part where it says, you can't discriminate against somebody because of their hair or their headwear. you know, considering the impact that it has on the students, impact that it has on people, and the impact it has on, you know, brown and black people. So we are really hopeful, and we really think this is going to be a thing that passes. And, you know, hopefully we can get our name on the list of other states that do the same thing, and to really make change in Oklahoma. You know, it's just a step at a time. But regardless, we're going to keep working on our passion to stop hair and head discrimination in Oklahoma.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you all for amplifying. I do have a follow-up question. So
Yes.
for some student that may be in middle school or high school that is looking at this and being inspired to want to, even in the virtual environment that we're in now, want to create these protections in their school, what would you recommend they do first?
I say look up their school's dress code, their policies first, so you can see what it says in wording. Talking to their principal or superintendent why that code was put in place, and contacting people around their community that feel as if, you know, it is discriminatory in students in their schools, you know,
Students in their schools. That's the biggest thing. It's like having, you know,
the support.
Yeah, multiple voices is better than just one. And as, you know, sorry as that is to say, it's true. So rallying people around you, and again, like you said, to like they said, to contact your principal, to the superintendent, speak on, you know, speak to your board members, and to research, you know, research other schools that have dress codes that are pretty open, that are, you know, you could use our dress code, for example, if you want to include that, implement it, presenting something to them already, that's already written, you know, is a lot more, it's easier for them to accept it than, you know, just saying, we want this to change. Well, they're, you know, mostly they're going to be like, well, what do you want to change? So having something to propose, rallying people around you, and making sure that you do not give up. We got told so many times
the policy would never
change, and just never giving up on, you know, your goal, because if you give up, then, you know, who else is going to do that? If it doesn't, you know, if you don't stand up and speak out, then who else is going to?
Especially being just us two doing it, I have to admit, it was really rough. And not getting the support of others, you know, having their support, but them not, you know, saying anything. Even if it is the two of you, you know, if we can do it, other people can do it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for amplifying your journey, telling us about the victories and the challenges that comes with creating change, even as young people. And some of the comments coming in are that people are so proud of you all. I'm just reading through the comments now, and I'm going to open up the line because I know we have some going on in our chat here that I want to give some of the commenters in the comments on Zoom to really just take a moment to just love on these young people and share what your reflections are for what they've shared.
I just want to say I am so proud of you. That is exactly even what I know advocates and lobbyists to do today. So I'm proud of you, young people, for knowing to read the policies and talk to the change makers and not take their simple no as the one-all be-all answer, because you're right. You have to keep at it. You have to rally your community sometimes, and sometimes you have to change you know, the folks who you're working with. You have to go around people. You have to know who to connect with, and you are learning those habits today. So I'm so hopeful for the future that some of the archaic policies, again, that discriminate and ban our communities and people, Black people, from being able to prosper, to being able to know just how these systems work and advocate and rally to change those archaic policies. So I just want to thank you. And I'm pretty sure many of us on the panel want to thank you and just concur how proud we are to see people, young adults like you, doing that type of work.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, I want to thank you all just for, you know, being able to provide a platform for us to even expand our advocacy on, you know, having something to look forward to, knowing that, again, that people are fighting for us, you know, whether it's, you know, in one state or another state, but federally, that this, if it doesn't work out in Oklahoma, that it, there's a chance that it will work out federally. And I know that it will. I know that that people are going to be willing to support this, because this is, again, this is not just a small issue, it's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to co-sign with what Crystal mentioned. And like I said in the chat, you ladies are legit the most wokest 18-year-olds that I know. I'm telling you, at 18, my mind was not on legislation. Like when I read your story on Vice and I saw how you ladies were both able to handle the African head wrap band with such determination and tact, it's like, that's so inspiring. Like I'm looking up to you, because in a state like Oklahoma, which I'm assuming is not a state that has too many Black and brown people, and for you ladies to be trailblazers and lead that movement in a school, listen, that's all I'm gonna say. You ladies are amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, I love it. Thank you all again, interracial activists, for being a partner with us on this journey and allowing us to help provide support and making those connections with you to align with those organizations that will stand with you all and what you all are preparing to do with the journey ahead, to continue to go beyond those no's and seek out those yeses. And even when it means being a forerunner, we celebrate you and you have our continued support.
Thank you.
Now we will have the pleasure and honor of inviting to the platform Annalise Harris, who I shared earlier is the founder and leader of Curls on the Block, founder of Miss Curly Pageant, and she has done some incredible things around the advocacy of on the ground for Colorado. So without further ado, I'll put it in the hands of Annalise and let her introduce herself and share her journey.
Hey, curl friends.
Hey.
And locks up, sisters. I see you. I am so grateful to be here virtually and get to see everybody. Usually it's like, emails, texts, and social media. So really cool to actually chat with you live. I know a lot of folks in Colorado are looking up for the video. It's like the middle of the day over there, so it's a little bit different timing. But I am so grateful again to just be a part of this movement, the Crown Campaign. We linked up about almost a year ago. Like I sent, I don't even know how it started. I just know I sent an email to somebody and I was like, yep, okay, this is it. I told the Curls on the Block board members, hey, this is legislation that's moving forward and we need to get involved. And so the board members were really excited to see that there was stuff to do and take action in another way, more than just, representation, but also legislation. So it definitely helped Curls on the Block really have some targeted goals and expand beyond the classroom. So my name is Annalise Harris. I am the founder of Curls on the Block, and I am excited because it's going to be a curly weekend next weekend, and it's a virtual curly weekend. I'm just going to shout out that we have state queens, curly queens already, and they're all going to be competing in the National Miss Curly Self-Esteem Pageant, and so they'll be trying to get that national title. So it'll be Miss Curly USA, Teen Miss Curly USA, and a Little Miss Curly. We also have Little Miss Curly Oklahoma, so I'll make sure she is connected with you all. Yes, and also a Teen Miss Curly North Carolina. So man, every time I hear North Carolina, I just hear that song North Carolina, and then I'll just leave it. Okay, yes, dated myself a bit, but it's all really just exciting to see how the nation has come together, and how also it's kind of really saddening that we all have had similar experiences. And so I know there's a lot of conversation, on who's representing, there's the curl patterns are showing up. At the end of the day, we're all faced with discrimination and microaggressions that have continued to impact our performance on the job, our self-esteem, interacting with our peers and colleagues, and just our existence in the world. So we all can unite with our follicles being some issue for sure. But with Curls on the Block's mission has been to attract girls of all curls and colors to embrace, explore, and empower their natural selves. And as an educator, I realized I needed to step it up a bit and not just focus on, that part, but connect it to, hey, we are curly girls also connected to STEAM. Like, we're scientists every time, and we use that chemistry to figure out that perfect balance of hair products, those natural ingredients, what actually works for our skin and our hair and our bodies, right? And so, really wanted to fuse those two pieces, our self-esteem and our connection to careers where we're not represented, or we don't see ourselves always promoted in these fields, because we are actually there. There's a ton of Black feminists, and they just don't get as much exposure. I'm just excited to see how girls, once they get an opportunity to connect, like, oh, when I'm making hair gel, I'm using the scientific method, or I'm going to tell you we're going to use the scientific method to make this flaxseed hair gel, and you're going to make observations, and you're going to contribute and learn what these products are we're using in our hair. So that's Curls on the Block. And annually, I've been able to host a Curly Weekend, and it has now gone virtual just because of COVID, but it also has been an opportunity to connect with states that I didn't have a chance to do so previously. It was always in my vision, but now it's actually happening. So really excited for the Curly Queendom to expand. And so part of the Curly Weekend is the Miss Curly pageant. And it's an opportunity for young curly friends and actually of all ages, because we have all the way up to mature Miss Curly, but for our curl friends to represent cultural appreciation, healthy and active lifestyles, and have an idea, product, or service addressing the need in the curly community. And that's really important to highlight, because often our girls are doing things, are entrepreneurs, and aren't really given that credit of, hey, yeah, this is using STEAM, and I'm using science in this. And it's also an opportunity to encourage them to just own that. And throughout the year of their reign, they have opportunities to attend hair festivals and when things were able to happen in larger crowds. But we also really support building the Curly Cruise. So that way they'll be doing more curriculum building and reaching out to their curl friends to just, hey, embrace each other. And hopefully, like with Izzy and the interracial activists, they'll be able to help Curly Cruise expand and get into legislation, get into other fields, and really take over and just own these spaces that typically look over us. I definitely want to just shout out to a really important figure in Colorado, Leslie Herod, and she was a Colorado legislator that really helped push and support the bill to move in Colorado and get passed early March 2020. That was like the last in-person event a lot of us went to, and we packed the Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Center, and were able to witness the governor write it into law. It has been in effect since September of 2020, and it's also been adopted into obviously statewide, but very specific to Denver Public Schools, has been incorporating the bill into their policies for Black excellence. So I know my peers who are educators were able to see, oh, this is what happens when you push legislation, it is signed into law, and how it translates into the school setting. And so they're having to address their bias, have to look at their school policies, dress code, obviously, and on even discipline. It has gone into that too. So definitely grateful to be a part of the Crown campaign and Crown Village, and supporting other states as well. I too would hope that we can bypass some of these stickler states, and I would say hating states, and go federally and get this passed because it definitely will make a difference. I remember, this is my last anecdotal story. I remember telling a gentleman I'd met just at Starbucks about Curls on the Block, and that, hey, I'm about to go testify, and sharing my story. This man who's a dental recruiter, trying to get Black dentists and grad students into dental offices and stuff. He works in that. he shared two stories about how some Black men were asked to cut their locks and maybe didn't even get a next job interview because they had locks, and the dental office like, no, unless he changes his appearance, we're not going to hire. So really, I know that we may be at the forefront, but everyone is benefiting from our work and our continued efforts to solidify and grow this movement.
Thank you so much for amplifying your story. It is so awesome and amazing to see the fruit of what mobilizing on the ground looks like when we actually are putting the energy behind the passion that we have, hitting the streets. Curls on the Block, the Miss Curly pageant queens, they were in the neighborhoods amplifying what was coming ahead with Colorado. And it was so amazing and awesome to see firsthand what it looks like to be presented. And we were able to be in partnership with them. I think on the Crown Campaign YouTube videos, you'll see the recording of the Colorado session. So as states are coming into wanting to know more about what it really looks like, theory to practice, looking at those videos is certainly an opportunity to be able to have a better understanding of what this looks like, theory to practice, and how to get involved. If you're available, Annalise, one more quick question. If you were speaking to someone in the community just like you that was looking to amplify creating change, wherever they are on the journey, can you just for a moment share with us what those first steps could be, or what motivation you'd share?
Sure, I was just having a coughing fit. I get so excited. So I would definitely say, you want to look into, if you're moved by our work and you're struggling, you feel alone, I definitely agree with what the interracial activists were saying. You have to find people who support you, and you have to be okay if it's not that big or not a lot of people, because it's better to have folks who are a small group but really support you than like 100 people who really don't really have the same aren't aligned with you. So looking in yourself, looking in your friends, identifying your own passion. And if you're looking to start something, join one of the efforts that's existing. There's a ton of stuff going on. You don't have to start from scratch. That's a beautiful thing about a movement. You really don't have to start from scratch. And I was just looking on the chat, using social media is definitely a way to build community. And if people aren't necessarily physically near you, Colorado is 4% Black, so it's not a lot of us. And, I've been able to really get support from other states in addition to finding, curly folk who care and locally. It's also, if you're interested in starting, you're not sure, start reading some books. Honestly, there's so much out there. I definitely revere Angela Davis and was heavily impacted by her work in the past. And she's known for wearing her fro, but little did people know she represented herself in court against some gun charges. Like, she was legit. And so you can start looking at people who've done things in the past and prior to you, and get inspiration, and either pick up that baton or be willing to join the movement and stuff that's already existing. And if you want to start something new, definitely feel free to do that. We have an opportunity to expand and look for the gaps that aren't addressed. And that's kind of what I did with Curls on the Block. I really saw, as an educator, we were not supporting our Black kids, and Black girls in particular, who were showing up to school really upset about how they looked and with their hair not done, and policies that really excluded them from the classroom essentially, and prevented them from accessing education as compared to their white peers. So I definitely would encourage folks to just find your curly crew, look to the past and see how you can address the gaps that exist currently and start building that. And also join stuff that's existing now. Share a post and even start now. You can start a podcast super fast. You got Canva out here. You can make some backdrops. You can do anything really. And the biggest thing I would say to remember is even if it's hard and when it gets really, really hard, that means you're really close to something else happening positive. Like you're really so close, and you should just keep going. And even if you have to pivot a little bit, that's okay because you still have your larger goal and sight, you know, and just keep pushing forward. And I know even with legislation, it can get really discouraging, and but it's okay. I know even in Nebraska, they didn't pass the act initially, but they're going to do it again. And just to reference the Curly Weekend, you all be back on the panel, share your work, and then get to talk with Nebraska, who didn't pass, and what they're doing to readjust and try again and be more strategic. And so those are my 3 suggestions. Find your Curly crew, look to the past, and then find where there's a niche and a gap that you could fill and from your passions and talents.
I love it. Thank you so much for amplifying that. Like, just some of the comments that are coming in are sending kudos and accolades to your work as well as the PowerPoints that you're hitting about, you know, keep pushing, you know, even if you don't necessarily have your allies or support, but find what's already happening, which is the story of interracial activists and Curls on the Block as far as how we were connected. At that time, we were connected, I think, all on Instagram, which is kind of where the advocacy goes down for the digital advocates. One of the things that I think is very powerful in how we connected is that we were open and ready to collaborate. It wasn't about what you do or what we do, and what you do may be wrong. It was really about us intentionally collaborating to strategize how to end discrimination. And whereas even when we learned from the New Jersey ACLU representative when we were at Rutgers earlier this year, is that it's one thing to have this law come to pass, but if it doesn't have case study, if it doesn't have teeth, then it's just another set of words in a book that has no power. And this is where the Crown Campaign intentionally organizes how we show up in space, how we show up to create the change. And that means, just like interracial activists, we are writing the policy. We are unafraid and unapologetic of making sure that we're securely safe in our environments and that we can do our part to end discrimination. This is a good part to amplify many of our partners that collaborated with us in really organizing, not only nationally, but I want to amplify these partners here in North Carolina that are really doing some incredible work. So we have Action NC, we have North Carolina Women United, we have North Carolina Black Women's Roundtable. All of these organizations are collective of women that are from across the state that are really pushing and advocating to create change. They signed on board last year with the Crown Campaign, Crown Act for NC initiative that I began when I started working this journey back in February. Because for me, it's one thing to do things nationally, but if I can't do it at home, if I can't do it in my own backyard, then, you know, how are you to believe that it's possible if I'm not burning tracks here? And so we were similar to Nebraska from the standpoint of our readiness may not have been there. And so we've been focusing on educating the people to get us in alignment with what it means to be ready so that we can give some power and teeth to support the representatives and senators that are wanting to amplify this for North Carolina. Because for us, it is an equity thing. For us, it is, we're seeing the intersectionality of how so many things are being torn from us, the economic justice that people are losing out on because of the amount of money and resources that we put into hair products to try to assimilate our look for other people. You know, just imagine what we can do about changing that and the monopoly that hair products in the industry has on taking our money, and the monopoly of workplace discrimination and school discrimination policies that are taking on, forcing us to have to spend money to assimilate to something that is acceptable based on existing policy. But you all are clear examples of what can be done to create the change we need to see with what's in our hands. We have fingers that can research, we have eyes that can read, we have fingers that can write and create that change. And I've just seen that abundance mindset from both of you all as organizers to not look at what you didn't have, but look at what was in your hand and amplified it. And even to the point that um, you're doing it anyway. Like that's the one thing I love about the village. Like whether you have a national spotlight, you're doing it anyway. Like you're gonna do this because you're passionate about it and it's what you believe in. And we with Crown Campaign really want to show those supports and amplify what's possible when we look at creating change. So thank you so much to interracial activists and Annalise from Curls on the Block for amplifying how to get involved. And I said this on social media earlier. If you're wondering what to do for next steps after the town hall, then you want to make sure that you're registering for the Miss Curly weekend because that is some really more amplifying opportunity to show your pride and celebration of what you all are doing to create change. So while we're transitioning, we're going to take a moment to get our next panel ready. We're so excited to have our moderator for the next panel to really amplify the stories here coming out of North Carolina. And we are grateful, so grateful to be able to share that. And so while we are preparing for that, we have a nice clip we're going to run really quick. Give you some more background on the Crown Campaign. Becca Ebony here, co-founder of the Crown Campaign. The Crown Campaign is a team of advocates from across the country that is building up a village to combat hair discrimination through policy change. Hair discrimination is very serious and it's impacting us in the workplace and the school. We're seeing so many cases across the nation where people are being discriminated against, not getting jobs, being fired from jobs, having to change their natural hairstyle or their protective style to assimilate into the community. Crown Act is spreading across municipalities and states. We need to be on the ground really navigating what that looks like to hold our municipalities and states accountable once the Crown Act is in place. This is where the Crown Campaign gets involved. We educate through advocacy and events in communities to really lift up the work. Now, the Crown Act is passed in 3 states and 2 municipalities so far. There's so much more work to be done. And make sure you go to crowncampaign.com after signing the petition and learn about more ways that you can get involved. We'd love to have you a part of the village and be on the team. crowncampaign.com. Awesome, incredible. So now what we're going to do is begin to prepare to really understand what this means for leading with equity in North Carolina. I'm really excited that as we are pushing our focus around equity and the work that we're doing with the Crown Campaign, we feel like it's very important for us to look at what makes it more equitable. What can we do to create change that's more equitable in our communities? So with this North Carolina panel, we have some powerhouse representatives that will be amplifying really theory to practice what that means and how we can create that equity in the way that we're leading. Another component of what we are doing that we'll be amplifying is we have a very special guest. We have a special guest that is joining us today that is doing some amazing and incredible things across the country. I think it's just so powerful that we get to have her with us today. She is very subtle and quiet on the national platform as far as what she does. But I'll tell you a little bit about how we met her. When we being Dr. Bernice Rumala and myself began to talk about what we were going to do, how we were going to connect with community, and how we were going to research and learn about how the Crown Act was passed in New York. How did it begin with the Human Rights Commission? What was the journey? Who's behind the scenes and who is leading the work when it comes to what this looks like on a national scope. With that, we were able to understand and identify and meet Adjoa B. Asamoah. And she has been leading the Crown Act work for such a long time behind the scenes, strategizing, being meaningful in the engagement of reaching out and leading people to create this change at the federal level as well as across states. We have the pleasure and honor with having a conference with her partnership when we were in November, when we were at the American Public Health Conference, and she was on a panel that amplified her work behind the scenes with the Crown Act. So when we look at the work that she's been able to do with the Crown Act, that means coming in partnership with representatives and senators across different states and really helping organize strategically how to move this without a hitch, so to speak, across the lines of House and Senate, which is not always an easy transition for people to do, especially depending on where the bill begins. And what we were able to learn from her has just been amazing as we continue to check in and walk with her. She is going to be gracing us a little bit later with, having greetings, sharing with us what the journey has been like, as well as supporting what leading for equity looks like. And what we'll find out from her is that she's doing some incredible things right now nationally, representing strategy as a newly appointed leader with the Biden and Harris campaign. So hopefully a little bit later she'll be able to share with us a little bit too. In the meantime, I want to take this opportunity to bring to the platform an initial introduction to who we have with us today. We have the pleasure of having a moderator of this second panel that is really an amazing gift to us. Aisha Powell is from a small and rural Warren County, North Carolina. So those of you that know about the state of North Carolina, most of us have a rural background that we are coming from. She is certified as a family life educator who received both her BS in Family Community Services and MS in Child Development and Family Relations from East Carolina University. She currently works as an assistant director in the College of Business at East Carolina University, where she advises, teaches, supervises peer mentors, as well as serves as the vice chair of Staff Senate. Aisha is passionate about serving communities throughout collaborative partnerships and community relationship building. Her interests are public policy, mentoring, civic and community engagement, and women's health. She is the founder of IC Fit Girls, an online social support group that promotes an active and healthy lifestyle to lower the risk associated with heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancer. In addition, she is the CEO of Aisha Powell LLC and serves as an advisory council member to the North Carolina Black Women's Roundtable. What we've had the pleasure of having Aisha more recently is that we awarded her the Community Leader Award for the work that she's been doing here with us here in North Carolina as a state rep. So we will have Annalise, I'm looking at Annalise. We'll have Aisha come forward and just share some words, what it feels like before we go into our next panel, what it feels like to be a community leader pushing this work around the advocacy and education of the Crown Act for North Carolina.
Welcome, everyone. Well, we are super excited. Me, myself, and Shemeka have been excited all week discussing the conversations that we had in the past, and now be able to hear from you guys as panelists is very inspirational. Just to see how bold, brilliant, and brave that you are to continue to push this act across our nation, and for those here in North Carolina that are supporting it. My first experience in learning about the Crown Act was at the North Carolina, the Black Women's Roundtable convening this past last March, well, I heard so much from the Crown campaign, the Crown Coalition, and about the Crown Act and what it protects. Hair discrimination, and what it protects is our natural hair, that is braids, short hair, long hair, weaves, wigs, that protects our hair, but it also goes a little deeper. It goes beyond our hair. It goes to our mental health, employment. So it impacts so much more, and it's good to hear about what you guys are doing in your states. And so after that March convening, we were so motivated here in North Carolina to keep it going. And that started on July 3rd, which is our National Crown Day. We were able to mobilize and advocate about the Crown Act here in North Carolina in our local municipalities, where we started our our July 3rd proclamations in our cities. So we had that here in Pitt County, in Greenville and Winterville, and we partner with our local cities in Kinston, also Raleigh, Charlotte, so throughout North Carolina. So really informing our local leaders that this is something that is important to us, and we want you to hear about our concerns. So starting there, then we went on and talked through our Crown conversations that you guys have been hearing about what we could do with local leaders as well as our state representatives. We were super excited this week to start the actual Crown Countdown Week for our virtual town hall. So you guys participated in that, and we thank you guys, the panelists, with your involvement. So we kicked off on Monday. So Monday, we wanted to write our letters to our senators. So we know that the Crown Act passed in the House, and we wanted to let our senators know that that is something that we want them to pass in the Senate. So we were able to provide that tool for you guys to write your local, your state, and your senators to make sure that they knew that this was something that concerned you and your communities. And so I heard a lot of you guys out there, you guys wrote into them, and it's good because that is all we want you guys to start doing, is to engage civically. And how do you do that? By using tools that are already out there, that you guys can make this seamless and get you guys just involved in that piece. Secondly, we went into Tuesday, and Tuesday was all about sharing your photos. We saw beautiful crowns out there, and behind those pictures were lived experiences. We had people to share about their experience with hair discrimination, being fearful to wear their natural hair. And so those lived experiences are what drives legislation. And we were so thrilled to have you guys participate in that way. On Wednesday, we had you guys submit actual questions that you wanted our panelists to answer. And we got a few of those. And so we're excited to be able to share those and hear from our panelists on their responses and feedback on what we could do here in North Carolina. Thursday, we actually wanted you guys to tag and share and build that momentum to today for our virtual town hall. So it was so great to partner with the Crown campaign to keep people their awareness of the Crown Act as we guys enter into January, where we will have our General Assembly first session in the first of the year. So we want you guys to continue to be involved of writing your senators, as well as keep this lifted in your local communities. So yes, that's what we've been doing here in North Carolina, Crown for NC, Shemeka. And so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Aisha, and so happy to have you amplifying what this work looks like, theory to practice here in North Carolina. We love your support. We are too excited. We have our special guest on that'll be greeting us. And I'll just read you a little bit about her as we want to celebrate and love on her while we have her here. This sis star is shining bright right now. Adjoa B. Asamoah. She's the Crown Act champion. She's a national Biden-Harris Black Engagement Advisor. She's a social impact strategist. She's a racial equity pusher, political operative, and proud active leader within Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. What an honor to have her in partnership. We're so happy to have her joining us. And on behalf of the Crown Campaign, a grassroots efforts of community members, we thank you, Crown Act champion Adjoa B. Asamoah, for your instrumental role in leading communities across the United States to lead the work behind the passing of the Crown Act. The Crown Campaign is honoring you with the Bold Advocacy Award for your continued efforts in ending discrimination. And without further ado, we are happy to give the floor to our sister, Adjoa B. Asamoah, to greet us.
Thank you so, so much, not just for the kind introduction, but for helping to lift not just me, but the other sisters who are in the movement. It is, when you do this work, it's not something that's always celebrated. And so I truly appreciate when people do recognize all that happened behind the scenes in order to get this movement where it is. So thank you so much, Sora. I truly appreciate that. With that, I will say greetings to sorors, sisters, and supporters. My name is Adjoa B. Asamoah, and as the racial equity champion, like you said, who developed the legislative strategy and leads the work nationwide for the Crown Act movement, it is truly a pleasure to be here. Other sisters who are in alignment with pushing for racial and gender equity. As I am sure you all have discussed prior to me joining, there is a very long-standing history and problematic practice of racial discrimination based on hair in the United States. There have been countless cases where Black people have been discriminated against for wearing natural hair and/or protective styles, including, but of course not limited to, braids and locks and twists and bantu knots and afros. This prevalent form of discrimination includes being fired. Folks have been passed over for promotions, and they have even had employment offers rescinded. It obviously impacts the upward mobility of individuals and families, and it has been the reason far too many of our children have missed school and have had negative educational experiences. I'm thinking about a dynamic young girl in Louisiana, Faith Finity, who was sent home in tears because she wore beautiful braids that were deemed a violation of school rules. I'm thinking about a brilliant student in Texas, DeAndre Arnold. So he could not participate in his high school graduation ceremony with his friends because of his locks. A display of cultural pride. And I think people worldwide from different walks of life collectively gasped, witnessing a video that went viral of a student athlete in New Jersey who was forced to make a decision that a boy, because we tend to, acknowledge our kids as adults too often, a boy was forced with a decision he should have never had to make. Choosing between having his locks cut and his identity attacked or forfeiting a match he had earned the right to participate in based on talent. The problem, of course, sisters and supporters, warrants a legislative fix. And I am proud to support lawmakers who champion this issue, ranging from since you mentioned our beloved organization, although I'm here in my personal capacity, Soror, who is an assemblywoman in New York, Tremaine Wright, who was the first person to pass the statewide bill. I'm thinking about Congressman Richmond, who led, and Congresswomen Marcia Fudge, Barbara Lee, and Ayanna Pressley, who co-led the historic bill ensuring that it passed in the United States House of Representatives just recently. I was privileged to be able to work with them. I am privileged to be able to work with Senator Cory Booker to ensure that it ultimately passes in the Senate. There is a need to recognize the African aesthetic must be lifted and valued. And we must challenge consistently these narrow standards of beauty that perpetuate the discrimination. This movement for me personally is about shifting both policy and culture, but it is not about judging. So while my hair is natural, while blown out today, I may very well have twists once I'm able to, breathe a little bit easier, I should say, on November 4th after the election. This is not about judgment. This is about celebrating our Blackness, lifting Black women, men, and children nationwide and even internationally. We shouldn't assume that just because someone opts to rock a perm or, straighten their hair, that a processed mind, is the same as a processed head, because it is not. I was with Stacey Abrams, who noted that, like, I rock my hair like this because it's easier for me. But we should definitely not assume or judge our sisters who opt to wear their hair different ways. This is truly about reserving the right to rock our crowns however we see fit. And because I'm sure my little sister, Senator, I should say, Natalie Murdoch is somewhere in here, although I don't see her on the screen right this moment. Since we are talking about the legislative process, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the fact that, again, while I'm here in my personal capacity, I do work as both an impact and political strategist to elect people who will pass a bill like the Crown Act. Demonstrating our electoral power is critically important for our community, ensuring that we are voting for people who will not only value our vote, but also legislate accordingly once they are elected. That is critically important. You see people like a Senator Kamala Harris who, supports the Crown Act in the Senate versus, other people who would not. So I don't want to make this a partisan issue, because it certainly should not be the responsibility of any one race or party to uphold and fight for people's civil rights. But I will acknowledge, however, that the people who are carrying this bill have been Democrats who have reached out to me. And before I pass the mic back to you, I just want to acknowledge, this year, white women nationwide have been and will undoubtedly continue to celebrate 100 years of having the right to vote. But we know that 1920 doesn't mean the same thing for Black women, and the hypocrisy of it all becomes painfully obvious against the backdrop of a pandemic that disproportionately impacts Black and brown women, and quite frankly really underscores the reality of injustice when I think about the fact that, we are gathered here in a community with each other, talking about the need to protect, support, and lift Black women, and Breonna Taylor is no longer with us in the physical sense, but her killers actually remain free. It's a reminder that although Black women, being the pragmatic activists and strategists that we were and are, who understood this concept of intersectionality before the term was even coined, we sacrificed in so many ways for a concept of democracy that didn't even include us when conceptualized. So this celebration, of the 19th Amendment doesn't necessarily ring the same bell, if you will, as it does for others. Last year, and I'll be brief, marked the 400th year of our forced removal from our homeland, the continent of Africa. We endured an unconscionable Middle Passage that I call the African Holocaust. We were dehumanized in ways that most people with our sense of history and lived experience understand. And we continue to fight and fight and fight and push forward. We have a lot of work to do, sisters. And I won't make this political, because this is about passing a bill, which is policy. And while they go hand in hand, politics and policy are different things, although obviously interconnected and inextricably linked. I want to just say this. We have not a lot of time left before Election Day. And it's important to note that people are voting right now. And this year, unlike years past, is about election season. We need to rally our folks, not just, although of course, including around issues like the Crown Act. We need to rally our folks, reach out to 5 folks, ensure folks understand how to vote, where to vote, prioritizing safety. Again, I'm talking in my personal capacity, to ensure that we are electing people who would, in fact, pass a Crown Act. Now, I'll close with this. In the spirit of true inclusion, because it is important for me to not dismiss any Black women's work, I obviously lead the efforts working directly with a number of elected officials to pass the Crown Act. But I have to lift the names of the sisters who I started this with, and that includes my big sister, my sorority sister, Kelly Richardson Lawson, Orlena, Marcy, Melanie. Those are the folks who I started this movement with. And it's important for me to recognize and lift them, because I'm oftentimes seen because I'm out there and I'm friends with a number of different elected officials, but there has been a small but mighty crew of sisters who have really been doing this work since day one. Movements don't just happen. Marcy has, worked wonders. Prior to starting this movement, we certainly did not create the issue of hair discrimination, and I am not the creator of advocacy. Nobody owns that, and there's no pride in ownership when it comes to that. But mainstream media was not talking about this issue prior to, so that is a skill set that I just want to recognize her for, as well as, my sister girl, Melanie, who you see the beautiful images of Black sisters rocking fros and braids and locks and twists. All of that is a concerted effort. And so I just wanted to make sure that I was lifting them, in addition to Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus at the time when there were new bans on certain hairstyles that the Army was proposing. She was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus at that time. She drafted a letter in partnership with Congresswoman Barbara Lee, signed by all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, all of the female members of the Congressional Black Caucus, saying, hey, we're calling out the racial discrimination in making such a decision to try to impose bans on certain hairstyles. So it's important to recognize that even before I called one state member, those 2 members of Congress were really championing this issue. So I recognize the fact that this is a village. We cannot do it alone. I appreciate all that you all have been doing to elevate this issue, to ensure that folks are, in fact, getting involved. It is beyond our civic duty. Elected officials work for us until we decide they don't. And so once you vote for people, it is critically important for us to hold them accountable and ensure that they are passing messages and passing legislation that we want to see passed. Again, white public opinion has informed policy. It is beyond time for us to ensure nationwide that it is in fact Black opinion that also informs public policy. So please stay connected with me in terms of updates as it relates to what I'm doing, what states I'm working on. And I look forward to continuing to work in partnership with Black women nationwide and brothers and children to ensure that the Crown Act, in fact, becomes law across the land. So with that, I will be quiet. And as they say, in the place that I am oftentimes running around, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you so much, Adjoa, for your powerful, powerful journey, your story of truth. Thank you for amplifying and lifting up so many other incredible Black girl magic that is behind the scenes. There's something powerful going on, and we're so happy to have you in partnership and for you to amplify the work of the incredible, brilliant Black women that are also leading this work and amplifying how we create the culture shift in creating this sustainable change. So without further ado, I'll put it in the hands of our moderator to prepare us for our next panel, Aisha Powell.
All right. Well, as I reflect on the power that is in this virtual space, it just gives me momentum to go out and do more on the national level and our local level. So as we, reflect on also our countdown, we had some other conversation the week prior, and this started our Crown Conversations. And these Crown Conversations was from our local and state leaders about their hair story and how they're leading in equity across the state of North Carolina. Again, we heard so many great things of what you guys are doing in Colorado, Oklahoma, but now it's here to represent my home state, North Carolina, and we have so many great perspectives on our panel today. And I'm going to first introduce our first Crown Conversation we had with the Honorable Judge Ashley, and she is coming from Hickory, North Carolina. She is making history, her story, and we talked about hair stories in our Crown Conversations. And we talked about her kind of history here in North Carolina. She was appointed by the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, to be the third and youngest Black female district court judge. And that since its inception 50 years ago. So 50 years ago, out of all of those judges, we are now just seeing Black women take on these roles. And so that is just powerful just to be in that conversation, being the third youngest woman. How powerful is that in this generation? And we talked about that visibility and exposure. It was so good to also hear that she already had partnered with Crown Campaign with some paint and sips. And so where she educated people about hair discrimination, and types of your different colds. And she's not only doing that in the community, but with her legal profession. She's writing articles like My Crown is Professional that included a glossary of terms to educate people, attorneys, and other people in the legal professions about hair. That was exciting to read and to share out to our village. And so I am going to ask Honorable Judge Ashley to come on and tell us a little bit about your work and what you're doing in North Carolina in regards to the Crown Act and your activities in the community. And thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Judge Ashley.
So I've got to head back out, but I just wanted to come on and say hello very quickly while I had a quick break. But just, super excited for the Crown Campaign to make its way here to North Carolina. As someone who has natural hair, who wears my hair in different styles, I am very intentional about that while on the bench. Every month it might be something different, from crochets to braids to cornrows to natural hair, because I want to ensure that all individuals understand that natural hair is professional. The hair that grows out of our scalp that God gave us is professional. And I want to normalize that for other attorneys, young Black female attorneys that may not feel like they can do that, or can feel empowered, or feel professional, or feel like they can wear their hair the way that they're supposed to. So as you said, just the initiatives that I've been doing as far as paint and sips to encourage us as Black women to embrace our hair, to love our hair, but more than anything is to accept the fact that we have choices on how we want to wear it. And I think that's the main thing, is that it's our decision if we want to relax it or if we want to straighten it. However we want to wear it, that's our choice. And then also, like you said, the article that I wrote and other articles I've been writing to talk about racial dynamics, and then, being a Black woman, being in the intersectionality of gender and race, really complicates things. And so I really want to make sure that I'm educating people on at least the one thing that people always see in addition to our skin is our hair. And just to know that it's important to us, that it is respected, that it is honored, and at the very least, that we are not discriminated against because of it.
Definitely. And I love that your first day on the bench, you wore your hair in a natural style. And that was so powerful. I think, from just that day was just historical. And for you to take on that with your natural styles. I think that visibility matters, and that exposure, and definitely your representation again. And you are, you know, the third and youngest Black district court judge in Wake County, which is the state city, Raleigh, North Carolina, our capital. So that is definitely impactful, and your reach is beyond just the courtroom. So yes, and we understand that youth is important to you and your involvement and hearing their voices. What can you say to our youth today about things about the Crown Act and why voting is important to elect officials that support policies that impact their communities?
Absolutely. I mean, voting is always important, but you know, a lot of times we worry about the presidential election and we miss the local elections. We miss those impactful legislators like Senator Murdoch that we have on the call today. Those important positions, those are the individuals that are creating these laws. Those are the individuals that are creating the laws that I have to follow in my position. And so we really want to make sure that you know locally who your legislators are, who your judges are, who your district attorney is, who your sheriffs are, who your mayors, school board. All of those local elections are extremely important. What I would say to young people or young women that are confused or trying to figure out what's going on, find you a mentor that you feel comfortable talking to in the workplace or as you're pursuing your goals. Mentorship is so important, but don't be afraid to talk to them about attire or, you know, what you're supposed to be wearing or how you're supposed to be wearing your hair and those kind of things. And I think that would really help our young people to stay encouraged. I love when I go to high schools and middle schools and young girls are wearing their hair. I'm always telling them how beautiful it is. And I think that as parents and as adults, even if our hair is a different state or relaxed or we didn't feel comfortable with it, that we really need to encourage our youth to embrace their natural roots because they have enough. I always like to say all the time, we have enough of things going on in the world that the last thing that we need to be worried about is our appearance or something that God has given us. So such as our hair. So the main thing is encouraging our youth and letting them know how beautiful they are and that they can be and pursue any dreams that they have.
Absolutely. And I can't wait till our virtual paint and sip. I'm still thinking about that, what we could do virtually here in North Carolina. And so thank you. We know that you have to head back into the courtroom, but before you leave, could you just tell us how we can contact you?
Sure. My website is Judge Ashley, spelled like Raleigh. So that's ASHLEIGH.com. You can find out more information about me. You can actually read the article. It's posted on there under my judicial philosophy because it is part of my philosophy is anti-discrimination, obviously. And then also you can go on there to book me for any type of events or just get in contact with me if you have any questions about anything. So just happy to support, proud of the Crown campaign and all that you're doing, and glad to have partnered with you for several events and looking forward to what happens here in North Carolina in ways that we can continue to encourage other individuals to feel comfortable in their skin.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Honorable Judge Ashley. So you have here in the state of North Carolina, a Black judge that has experienced hair discrimination, well, not hair discrimination, but hair experiences where she felt like she assimilated just because of the culture of the predominantly white institution. She has great articles, again, that you can share as a resource to people in your community that want to learn more about Black hair. And so thanks again for joining us. So next, our Crown conversation is with Senator Natalie Murdoch, which I am just happy to share that she is also making history here in North Carolina. So Senator Natalie Murdoch is the youngest Black woman in the General Assembly representing District 20, Durham, North Carolina. So we are happy to have you here, and we discussed so much good stuff during our Crown interview. We started with your childhood experience, with you being active, which is great because we want to start early with healthy lifestyles. But we talked about how sometimes that can also be challenging when you're sweating your hair out and just managing. Then as a professional, you were able to also feel that weight to assimilate into more European hairstyles sometimes. But now becoming more comfortable with rocking natural hairstyles because of your village, like your national partners with your national village, with in the senators across North Carolina, and also representatives and partners here in North Carolina. So we're super excited to talk to you about a little bit of the highlights that we shared during our Crown conversation. And so can you tell us a little bit about your hair story and what you're doing here in the state of North Carolina in regards to advocating for policies such as the Crown Act?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Aisha and Shemeka, and Judge Ashley Parker Dunston had to hop off, but it was just last year. We were at the Black Communities Conference and they had a phenomenal panel about this act. I think that's just as they were getting connected with my big sister. I would be remiss if I did not just shout out my soror and big sister mentor, Adjoa Asamoah, and talk about full circle moments. I mean, I got to know her through, party work and being in DC, and she is a leader, and I hope to do the same, where you bring people along with you and said, hey, I'm having this briefing on Capitol Hill. We're talking about the Crown Act. And for one, to see a Black woman to literally book a room in the Capitol. So I don't mean we hung out at a restaurant down the street. We are in the Capitol of the United States, where Congress holds their meetings, and had a full room. And just how it was an out-of-body experience to see Black women fill that hall, congresswomen, members of the Divine Nine, leaders, fill that hall. And that's where we first learned that there would be an effort to pass the Crown Act at the federal level. I was just an advocate at the time, a consultant, just cared about the issue, having no idea that literally, I guess the next year, if not 2 years after that, am now a state senator. So was just advocating for it, just as someone that was passionate in the community. At the time, I was really active with Black Women Vote. Shout out to Higher Heights. They're also supportive of all this amazing work. And again, it's back to issues, right? I mean, as young people, I'm 36 years old, I'm a millennial, and I think with this current election, again, not to get too partisan, but it's really about issues. It's not about an individual. It's about what you represent. I mean, I think even going back to our forever president, Barack Obama, they connected to his message and what he represented. He was a figurehead of a vision. And so I think when it comes to the Crown Act, it's just this magnetic appeal where Black women everywhere say, wait a minute, I get that. Why should I feel uncomfortable rocking my natural hair at work? Why should I have to talk to my daughter about them maybe pushing her to the back of the classroom if her, natural hair, her twist out is too large? Why is that? And so just can't thank Adjoa enough for sharing this time with us today. Also, my colleague in the General Assembly, Representative Candy Smith, so happy to see her, was with her a little bit earlier this week. And back to why representation matters. I cannot stress that enough. I was on a conference call with Jennifer Carafoy in Virginia, who's running for governor, and we were actually talking about her doula bill. She sponsored a doula bill so that doula services could be covered under Medicaid, and said, oh, yep, I'm working on the Crown Act too. And I said, we are too. Here in North Carolina, we have our squad of Black women, and we're going to get the Crown Act passed in North Carolina. So just having a national network of legislators. I do not want to mispronounce her name. Even the legislator in Colorado, is it Harrod or Harrod? I know you know Adjoa, but she worked on the Colorado Crown Act, and I was on a call with her about criminal justice reform and policing. Crown Act came up again. So just knowing nationally that representation matters. If we weren't elected officials and in our legislators in our state, these are issues that we probably wouldn't be talking about. And so I think since elections are around the corner, it's just a very timely reminder to show that elections matter and representation matters. And when women like us are in these seats, we can legislate from our lived experiences. It's very hard for someone to advocate for something like the Crown Act when they don't know what it feels like, as Judge Ashley Parker Dunston said, to have to worry about your hair. During my Crown story, I shared that I spent a lot of time, 5 years in Asheville. I was there for graduate school studying public administration. And my first job, I was the only Black woman at the company. So I realize now that I'm a little bit older, I was in my early 20s at the time, I felt the need to assimilate, but I could not articulate that. Being the only Black woman in that department, just felt that I needed to fit in. I needed to go along to get along. So happy to now be an honorary Durhamite. It was in coming to Durham that I think I found my voice again, quite frankly. Embrace being unapologetically Black. I think I lost a little bit of that, and I think that's connected to your hair identity. I wear protective styles, but as a politician, I do have to highlight Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Joanna Hayes as well, but really Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. I remember seeing her campaign materials with her twist, thinking, okay, you better wear your twist on your campaign literature. You are not pressing your hair out. You're like, I'm going to have my twist. That stuck out to me, as well as now Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. Same thing. The first time I met her when she was campaigning, she had a short twist out. And I just remember what that felt to me. I think I was a soil and water supervisor at the time, to see, wow, these are congressional level politicians, and they're embracing their natural hair. The same for Stacey Abrams, running for governor in the South. A real bodied woman with her own natural hair. And so I'm just thankful to so many women that are just embracing who they are, because there's always someone watching. Even at Soil and Water, the very bottom of the ballot, I was shocked at how many young Black girls came up to me to say, I saw you, I see what you're doing. Or if I'm working the polls and they say, wait a minute, that's you on this ballot, I'm actually voting for you. So when it comes to the Crown Act, not only are we setting an example and a model, but we are showing individuals that we see you. We're not coming to Raleigh to feel good about ourselves. We're coming to shake it up. We're coming to make sure that our laws are more representative of all people of North Carolina, not simply us, just so that we feel good about ourselves. We are in these seats to advocate for people that have never had a voice before. I'm a North Carolina native, a daughter of the South. I can trace my roots to slavery in Orange County, North Carolina. So North Carolina is home, and it's long past time that we have representation of everyone. We are a diverse state, and I am proud to have a squad in North Carolina. I let folks know we also have a squad. Representative Smith is on that squad. We got a lot of Smiths. There's some other Smiths too, but just proud to be a part of the squad, and we will do all that we can to legislate in a way that's really reflective of that rich diversity. And so the Crown Act, again, since I attended that briefing, it was on the short list of, okay, we now have a seat. We now have the position to flip both chambers. The Crown Act is coming to North Carolina. And so just so thankful to be part of this national network, this national movement, and just what it will mean for Black women to see themselves in policy, to see the power of having representatives that really, really know what it is to be a Black woman. And then just also, I would be remiss, back to Judge Ashley Parker Dunston, I think folks forget, even as working professionals, that these are things that we deal with. You think that, oh, I have my education and my tenure and my degrees. It was through this work. Even tenured professors felt the pressure to conform. So I was shocked that even with all of your accolades, your hair is still an issue. And so movements such as the Crown Act will break through that ceiling, change the culture so that natural hair is the norm, that we won't have to explain it, that it won't be odd, it won't be exotic. It will be just a normal, a normal instance of, this is just how I choose to wear my hair. I shouldn't be judged for it. I shouldn't be denied job opportunities for it. I shouldn't be viewed of as unprofessional. Everyone should have the right to wear their hair however they choose. And so I'm happy to be a part of that, and a part of a new era in North Carolina politics, where we will be more reflective of the great state that we know and love.
Absolutely. It's so wonderful to have great role models, to see you guys active in our communities, and know that I could go to you when I have concerns, as well as to our actual officials. So it's good to have that exposure and just that network and village of people that we know that we have that common goal, and that's to build healthy communities for our Black women and Black families and Black men across the state of North Carolina. So thank you, Senator Natalie.
Thank you.
All right, so I am a little excited here because I have my representative here, Representative Candy Smith here in Pitt County. So I stay here in Greenville, North Carolina, and she is our representative, and she also has made history in the state of North Carolina. She is the first Black mayor of Greenville, North Carolina. So great, great historic moment for the residents here in Greenville, and also doing great things in the House of Representatives. You serve here, Representative Kennedy, on the Education K through 12 committee, as well as other committees, and you have that voice in our legislative, in the House, and know how to examine policies from the beginning, see that out in the House, and see how that is enforced in our communities. So we are just super excited to have you here today. And so we wanted to begin our conversation about hearing about your hair story and kind of the work that you're doing in the House and also around North Carolina.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And let me make sure that I corrected the first Black female as the mayor of the city of Greenville. But I'm excited to be here among all of you professionals who know a whole lot more than I do, and to see all of my sorors doing all this wonderful work. It just impressed me. I learned more about you, Sarah.
Adjoa.
Adjoa.
Yes.
I went to the last Delta Days, and in one of the sessions we were talking about the Crown Act. And then they brought your information up. I was writing your name down. I was on your website looking everything up. I said, "That's my Sarah, yeah." You know, I get excited because we do powerful work.
Yes, yes, we do.
Right. So I just get excited about it. If I look at my hair story, I can't say that I have had anyone to say anything negative to me, because most of them are probably afraid. I have that look. And so because I have that look, they don't try to test me that way. I went completely natural probably like 4 years ago. And I said, I'm not doing anything to impress anybody else. I just need to make sure I'm comfortable. And that's what it's about. I'm going to make sure I'm looking professional and presentable at all times. And that's the major thing. But one of the things I try to do is make sure I encourage others. One of our local, used to be one of our local news anchors here. Her name is Lynette Taylor, but her real name is Ani. And so what I found out is not only did they make them change their hair, but they had to change their name. And see, those are things that bothers me. And I just could not believe that she would. I said, what do you mean that's not your name? And she said they gave me a name and said I would have to use this name to be on air. And then she said the reason why she left the first time is because they told her she had to change her hair, and she had to have her hair straight, and she had to appeal to their audience. And all of that brings me back to the experiment that we have with the dolls. And we ask the children, which one is the bad one? Which one do you want the most? Those things are the things that bother me. And so I do everything I can to help promote and encourage, because one of the other news anchors was felt like she couldn't wear her natural hair. And I encouraged her, and then she just told them I'm wearing it natural, and they finally said, okay. And I was like, yes. So I do a lot of encouraging other people, because I know I'm not afraid, but sometimes other people, I have to help them find their voice. So I was excited and have been approached by several people here in the area to ask about the Crown Act and what do you think about it? I was like, of course. We have to dismantle this systematic oppression a step at a time. And we can't sit back and say, well, we got to wait until they say it's okay. Now, I do understand the strategy behind it. So we are going to flip the House and prayerfully flip the Senate. That's our prayer. And so I've been talking to Senator Murdoch, and we've been talking about trying to do companion so we can have it in the House and the Senate file so we can have a stronger opportunity. And then, of course, have full support from our legislative Black caucus here in North Carolina. So we're excited about it. And I think that we're going to have great support. I don't anticipate having much support in the House, especially once we flip it with my peers, especially with my white counterparts, because I've kind of laid some groundwork for them. And that groundwork is, if you say that we're working together on issues, that's all issues, not just your issues. And so I think they understand fully where we're coming from. And I think as a caucus, we're working more to make sure that we position ourselves to look at those things that we really have an influence over, those laws that we can really make a difference with and change. We can't sit back and just say, it's okay, but we're making laws. So even if we, in some of the situations, may not win the vote, we have to put it out there because people need to know. And if they don't know you're fighting for them, then that in itself is disheartening. And so it goes back to what you said, Sarah, earlier about you guys are our boss. We're not the bosses. But many times as elected officials, we put the air out that it's us and they have to answer to us. And that's not the case. And everybody I meet, I always tell them, we're here. You guys are here and we're down here. So you come to us and you elect us, you can hire us and fire us every 2 years. So if you don't like our job, you don't like what we're doing, you can say, you got to go. And so I like to make sure that I meet people where they are. I try to be transparent, and I try to make sure that I'm helping them to be a voice, because many people feel like they don't have a voice, and I try to help them to be a voice. And I've had several people to come to me and say, what can we do about this Crown Act? So I didn't even know, because Sarah Murdoch just joined us recently. I didn't know that she was interested in it, and I knew I was interested in it. And so I had talked to my aide and said, look, I need you to go ahead and start pulling this stuff up, because we will be introducing this. That's one of the first things we're going to do. And he was like, okay. And then when I was telling him, I said, guess what? When I talked to Natalie, she said, yeah. And she knew you, and we were talking. I said, oh my gosh, we need to just do this together and make it powerful. And so we're very excited about that, because we have other other deltas also that serve with us in the House and the Senate. I know they're going to be excited, but also other Black legislators that's going to support us. And so we plan on making it big. And I hope, of course, since Natalie has your contact information, then we can reach out in case we need anything that would be able to help us. Because I think we're going to, no, let me change it. We're going to pass it. My goal is for us to pass it in 2020 or 2021 when we start back in January. That's my goal. But if that does not happen then, doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because it's going to happen. But we're going to flip it, though. That's the first thing. We're going to flip it. So I'm impressed by everybody who's willing to, number one, wear their natural hair, because you got to be okay with you. I think it does a lot with self-esteem. When you have to keep changing yourself for someone else's narrative, that's an issue. And that stops people from doing a lot of things that they would normally do. But when you feel like you don't have to do that, I tell people there's no limit with the sky, because people have been going to the moon for some years now. So we can make this happen.
Aisha, I am so sorry. Really, really quickly, since we do have attorney Crystal Richardson on, do just want to highlight her, because we met with Shauna Williams at the time. She was the director of the Legislative Black Caucus, and so we actually were at the General Assembly meeting with Shauna just last year, because since she's with the National Association of Staff that serve all the black legislators across the nation, we just wanted to tie her in and to get her introduced to Adjoa, and also very briefly have to highlight Gloria de los Santos and the Rage Movement. So they have a statewide network in coordination with the Black Leadership Roundtable. Actually, a lot of amazing work going on in Pitt County. So I'm so glad that Representative Smith is here. They have reached out to even Farmville to say, will you pass a resolution saying that hair discrimination is not okay? So they are actually working at the local level, and I'm seeing it also as a legislator in Durham. I'm getting those emails. What are you doing about the Crown Act? So as we all know, yes, we are elected officials, but without a grassroots movement, nothing will happen. We have to be able to say, my constituents are asking for this. So as far as my caucus, I've let them know, hey, I'm getting emails about this. I know my other colleagues are, and we want to flood those email boxes of all legislators, no matter what your party affiliation is, because we forget when it comes to strategy, rural is not, that doesn't mean that it's not Black. We have people all over the state that care about this issue. You don't just have to be in a very blue county like mine. No matter where you live, again, it could be Farmville. email your local representative and your city council members to say, I either want a local ordinance, I want a law, whatever that looks like. So for folks listening, contact to all of your elected officials and let them know that you want the Crown Act now.
Well, the good thing is that you have, and I'm here with my sisters, I even see she has a red wall in the back. So, you know, this done became a whole chapter meeting. But it is, you don't have to do it by yourself. Again,
Yes.
I share that I'm the legislative strategist who developed the movement. Part of what we did was to create a whole entire network of organizations that support it. So, of course, our own very, you know, beloved Delta Sigma Theta, but Alpha Kappa Alpha and the Links and the National Action Network and the National Council of Negro Women and African American Mayors Association and NBCSL, Nobel Women. When I think about all of the organizations that Legal Defense Fund, NAACP, like I literally called my friends who are the leaders of all of these organizations and asked them to stand in solidarity with, and not just to support me, but to support the movement. So you don't have to figure it out by yourself. That's what I am here for specifically, to be able to say, here's what worked, here's what we've done in other jurisdictions, here's what the Crown Act is, here's what the Crown Act is not, developing the FAQ, making sure people actually understand what this bill does, being able to answer the questions, and just empowering you all to be the Crown Act champions that you obviously are. I just wanted to share, and only because I have to drop and go get back to this this election, and of course all of the things that are included with doing that, because victory must be on our side come November 4th. I just wanted to share a couple things. One, my name, if it doesn't give it away, I am African. My father was born under colonization in what would become the Republic of Ghana. My mother, however, is US born in Greenville, North Carolina. So
wow. Oh my goodness.
You have to be my cousin, so there's no possible way. Everybody at the Piggly Wiggly has been my relative, so I'm just convinced that we're family even beyond the sisterhood that we share. So my mom was born definitely right there in Greenville, North Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
Summers and Rocky Mount, all of that good stuff. And I was there not too long ago, almost 2 years ago. My aunt transitioned, and so I was home and drove past where my mother grew up. It looks quite, different now, but that is my home as well in terms of homes here in the States. I just wanted to share a couple things before I have to jump, specifically about the Crown Act itself. The Crown Act, of course, stands for create or creating, depending on the legislator, a respectful and open world for natural hair, of course. It is a bill that prohibits discrimination based on hair style and hair texture. We know that there's no biological basis for race. That does not make racism, however, any less real. So while race is a social construct, racism is very much real. States have existing prohibitions against discriminating based on one's race. They do not have definitions of race, because how do you define something that's a social construct and mean something different to different people? So in acknowledgement of race being a social construct, there are still prohibitions against discriminating against someone based on race. What this bill does is it goes in and it looks at whatever that existing statute is that prohibits the discrimination based on race and says, whatever you think race is, without defining it, we say include traits that are historically or typically associated with race, such as hair. And then we go on to describe some of the styles that are included, such as the braids, locks, twists, etc. So it's important to understand that this does not trump, no pun intended, OSHA and safety regulations. Sometimes people get confused about what the bill is and what it does. And they're like, well, if I have long locks and, it's going to dip in my soup. I mean, we've heard some of the most interesting things out here. And if by virtue of your industry regulations, you have to wear your hair up in a net, wear your locks up in a net. So this is not, again, I've seen people try to justify and couch their racism in talking about length, when this is not about length. They're talking about hair color. This is not about hair color. This is not about somebody who wants to, you know, wear their hair in a style that is, you know, somebody asked me, well, what if I just want to wear, what did the man say specifically? He said, what if I want to wear my hair looking like a joker with little balls on the end of it, and somehow try to attach that to our cultural representation, which of course is a very flawed, we'll say, flawed interpretation of what this is, because this again is not about dismissing, you know, people's right to do what it is that they want to do with their hair, but this is specifically talking about racial discrimination in the form of hair discrimination. So again, it's not about length. It's not even about color per se. It is truly about ensuring that we are protected and that there is a legislative fix to ensure that our ability to wear our hair in its natural state and or protective styles are protected. Just a couple things. You talked, Sora, about, you know, going natural recently. I went natural again recently. I've worn my hair in all sorts of things, afros, twists. I haven't done locks, but braids, etc. But we are not monolithic. And so our experiences vary quite a bit. So we come to this place of self-acceptance at different stages, and that is okay. Self-acceptance comes to people at different times, but this is really about, again, honoring our own culture, our own history, and being able to rock our crowns however we see fit. I just so happen to have been raised by a Pan-African, so my dad is a retired Africana studies and political science professor, so you know, I came to this a little bit differently, having gone to the door of no return at the age of 9 and walking that path that, you know, I encourage everybody to walk. But again, I just wanted to note that this is truly about protecting our people against racial discrimination in the form of hair discrimination. So I am going to go jump and go do the work of our people and ensure that this election turns out the way it should. I want to again thank you all for convening this conversation. When I say village, I'm talking as someone who has lived in the village. It is truly about the village and lifting this work and working collaboratively. So I thank you all, sisters, for your support. I look forward to working with you and helping to strategize about how to ensure that this goes from not just introduced, but to actual passage, which is very different. Some people introduce the bill, they have no strategy to pass it. So I look forward to working with you all collectively to ensure that hair discrimination is in fact outlawed in my mama's birthplace. So with that, I'm going to send virtual hugs. Thank you all for everything that you are doing to support. I got to shout out AC. AC, she's not ours, so she happens to wear pink and green, but y'all know we wear black before we wear crimson and cream or pink and green or gold and blue and or any other colors. And because she has really demonstrated what it looks like to be an executive and leverage where you sit. So everybody, no matter where you sit, you have a place in this movement. And again, it is good to be in community with you all. I'm gonna bid you all adieu and say, let's keep up the fight. Thank you so much, sisters. I'm sending hugs and, you know, virtual kisses and all that good stuff, because failed leadership means we're still in COVID and, you know, it's unsafe.
Yes.
With that, y'all, I'm gonna tap out. See you, sisters.
Blessings. Thank you so much for such a powerful and enriching opportunity that we've had. Wow, 3 o'clock came fast today. I cannot believe we're already wrapping up, but we wanted to just make sure that you all knew how to get in contact with these incredible, brilliant leaders leading with equity across North Carolina. Please check in the chat. If you're joining us on Facebook, you'll see everyone's contact information in there that shared it. We definitely want to keep this conversation going. If you are looking at this on the replay on Saturday and you have questions come up, please put them in chat, and we're going to make sure that we can get these questions to our panelists to make sure that you are heard. Definitely thank you all for taking time out of today to come and collectively share with us as we're building equity in North Carolina by building a safety net through the Crown Act and other protections that will eradicate discrimination from us as representatives and constituents. And I'll yield back to Aisha, who has been doing an incredible job leading this moderation portion with the second panel. Is there anything that you would like to amplify before we close out officially today?
Yes, thanks for being letting me be a part of the village. And as you guys see, we have political strategists, we have a senator, judge, we have a representative, we have people doing grassroots projects in their state. So we are out here passing the crown, ending discrimination and injustice everywhere. So my last thing I want to remind you guys, you know, we're doing 2 in 2020. We're voting and we want to be voted. We want to vote and be counted. So I want to remind you of some important dates. Of course, for those who do not want to go out to early voting or to vote on the day of election, you can complete an absentee voting ballot. And the deadline to request that is going to be October 27th. You must get that in postmarked by Tuesday, November 3rd, and it has to be received no later than Friday, November 6th. Also, the last day to register online is today. So we want to make sure you guys tell everyone that you come into contact with today is to make sure that they have registered to vote online. But if not, they can register to vote the day of, starting on October 15th through October 31st. Why vote? Because we need representative and local leaders, state leaders, and people in Congress that represent our concerns. Also, remember to complete the census. That deadline is October 31st. And write your elected official. I have my elected officials in my contact list. I'm very familiar with like Representative Smith, me and her assistant. I feel like we're friends now. But yeah, so make sure that you guys have their contact information just so you can make sure they are discussing concerns that impact your community in the House and in the Senate. Also, make sure that your friends and family know about the Crown Act. So encourage them to do their research and know how it impacts our schools. And so you can vote in people such as the Board of Commissioners, our city councils that are making sure that these acts and policies are lifted in the state of North Carolina. So without further ado, we're going to wrap up. And again, we want to thank all of our panelists that are in North Carolina as well as throughout the U.S. that are pushing the Crown Act in your state. All right, well, you guys have a great, great Friday and have an even better weekend. Take care.
Thank you again.
Yes.
Thank you all.